Lust. The fire that consumes or purifies, a Grail-inspired revelation for mankind. Lighting the path for all who are trapped, confused, or silently suffering under the power of lust. Overview. Humanity stands today at the summit of spiritual confusion. All over the world, men and women struggle silently, painfully, and often shamefully against a force they scarcely understand, lust. It lurks behind broken homes, emotional wounds, secret habits, shattered innocence, addictions, hidden compulsions, and the inner emptiness that modern society tries to mask with noise, pleasure, or distractions. Yet lust is not merely a bodily impulse. It is not merely a moral label, nor a psychological weakness, nor even a cultural taboo. In the clear light of creation's laws, lust is a spiritual distortion, a misuse of a sacred force originally given for blessing, joy, and noble building. It is the misdirection of a creative power that was meant to uplift and ennoble but has been twisted into something that burdens, enslaves, and destroys. Civilizations, religions, philosophies, and moral codes have tried to restrain, regulate, or reinterpret this force. Some have treated it as normal, others as shameful. Some have glorified it, others have sought to suppress it. Yet the confusion remains, because humanity has approached lust from the wrong direction. From the outside in, instead of from the inside out. Only the light of spiritual truth, the immutable, luminous laws of creation as explained in the Grail Message, can reveal lust in its true nature, its origin, its effects, and the only path out of its grip. This book does not accuse. It does not condemn. Rather, it illuminates, clarifies, and restores dignity to the seeker. It is a guide for all who suffer silently under the weight of lust, for those who wish to break free, and for the sincere human spirit that longs for purity, peace, and inner strength. For lust is not destiny. It is not fate. It is not an unchangeable nature. It is a shadow cast by the misuse of a sacred fire, and shadows vanish in the presence of light. Preface. The cry of the enslaved heart. There is a cry rising from humanity today, not the loud cry of protest, not the angry cry of social conflict, but a deeper, more painful cry, the silent cry of the enslaved heart. It is the cry of the man who hates the chains he cannot break. It is the cry of the woman who despises the impulses she cannot silence. It is the cry of the youth whose innocence has been stolen before they knew what was happening. It is the cry of marriages destroyed by secret images, hidden desires, emotional entanglements, or forbidden pleasures pursued in moments of weakness. It is the cry of souls who feel ashamed before their own conscience, yet too afraid to seek help. And yet, the greatest tragedy is this. Many no longer see lust as an enemy. They have normalized it. They have turned it into entertainment. They have woven it into relationships, media, culture, music, fashion, art, social media, and even religious tolerance. They have defended it as personal freedom, adult expression, or natural desire. But the human spirit knows. Deep within, the conscience testifies. The inner voice trembles. Something within whispers that lust is not harmless. Something within warns that lust eats away at dignity, clarity, joy, and peace. This book is written for the one who hears that inner cry, whether faintly or loudly, and desires to be free. To you who have struggled and fallen countless times. To you who are tired of fighting alone. To you who fear you will never rise. To you who feel inwardly dirtied, weakened, or ruined. To you who long for purity but feel trapped behind bars of habit, memory, or temptation. Hear this truth. You are not beyond help. You are not abandoned. The light has not turned away from you. For the laws of creation are not weapons of condemnation. They are bridges of rescue. They work to awaken, to guide, to heal, and to elevate. Even the consequences of sin, painful as they may be, are ultimately corrective, not punitive. This book is a hand extended to you. Not from a fellow prisoner, but from the knowledge of the eternal laws that govern your soul. A light that reveals the way upward. A path that every human spirit can walk. A liberation that the light itself offers to all who sincerely turn toward it. May this work reach the one for whom it is meant. May it heal the heart that cries in silence. May it awaken the dignity that lies buried beneath the ashes of error. May it show humanity the true nature of lust, and the glory of purity that awaits the spirit that chooses the light. Introduction. What is lust? Misunderstood fire, misused force. Lust is one of the most misunderstood forces in human existence. Some define it narrowly as sexual appetite. Others see it as desire in general. Still others imagine it as harmless fantasy, natural biology, or unavoidable human weakness. But in truth, lust is none of these. Its definition cannot be found in psychology textbooks, moral codes, religious doctrines, or cultural norms. Lust can only be understood spiritually, within the unchanging laws of creation that govern the inner life of human beings. The true origin of lust. The human spirit is a bearer of creative power. This power was given to uplift, ennoble, build, and harmonize. When directed rightly, it becomes love, devotion, warmth, joy, inspiration, and noble sexuality, all pure, luminous, and life-giving. But when this same creative power is misdirected, when it becomes entangled with vanity, imagination, sensuality, fantasy, selfishness, or unclean desire, it degenerates into lust. Thus lust is not merely a feeling. It is a corruption of a sacred force. It is the descent of a pure energy into coarseness. It is the misuse of something originally bright and holy. Lust is a movement away from the light. Whenever desire is separated from purity, from clarity, from noble volition, it becomes lust. Lust is not born from the body. It is not triggered by the senses. It is born in the inner being, in the wrong attitude of the spirit. A body cannot desire without the spirit. The senses cannot enslave unless the inner being has already leaned toward darkness. Thus lust is first a volitional direction, then a thought, then an image, then a craving, then an act, then a chain. Humanity often thinks lust begins with temptation from outside, a sight, a person, a form, a moment. But the Grail Message reveals, temptation only resonates where something within already opens the gate. Lust does not start with an object. It starts with a condition, a state of inner sloth, a lack of spiritual vigilance, a sinking of the inner gaze, a dulling of purity, a neglect of the inner light. This is the soil in which lust grows. The purpose of this book. This book does not seek to shame. It seeks to illuminate, to show the origin, the mechanism, the consequences, and above all the escape from lust. You will not find condemnation here. But neither will you find softness toward error. For truth is merciful only when it is clear, precise, unwavering, and luminous. Each chapter will reveal the laws through which lust gains power, the inner movements that allow it to take root, the spiritual consequences of its indulgence, the invisible structures it builds in the soul, the path through which it is dissolved, the way back to purity, dignity, and joy. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is left vague. The goal of this work is transformation, not comfort. For those who struggle, if you are entangled in lust, know this. Your struggle is not hopeless. Your nature is not fixed. Your heart is not irredeemable. You are not the sum of your weaknesses. Lust is not who you are. It is only what you have done to your inner light. And what has been bent can be straightened. What has been dimmed can be rekindled. What has been polluted can be cleansed. What has been chained can be set free. Through recognition. Through repentance. Through discipline. Through alignment with the eternal laws. Through the awakening of the Spirit. Through the power of purity. This book will show the way. Part 1. The Nature of Lust. Chapter 1. The Origin of Lust. When desire leaves the light. Lust is not born suddenly. It does not spring forth as a monster in the soul without a path leading to its emergence. Every force within creation has an origin, a purity, a lawful direction. Desire itself is holy, for it was woven into human nature by the Creator as a propelling force, a movement that urges the spirit forward in joyful striving, growth, connection, and expansion. But whenever a force leaves its ordained path, it becomes distorted. It becomes something other than what was intended. This is the story of lust. The pure beginning of desire. In its purest form, desire is simply longing for the light. It is the inner urge to grow, to unite, to give, to uplift. Desire is what makes man move towards beauty, truth, and another human being in love. Without desire, there is no warmth, no bond, no continuation of life. The Grail Message explains that all forces descending from the light remain pure until they reach the level where human free will can either guide them correctly or misdirect them. Human beings are placed at a turning point, either to ennoble the forces entrusted to them, or to drag these forces into distortion. Thus, lust begins not from the force of desire itself, but from the human misuse of this force. Where the distortion begins, the fall begins quietly. Not with an act, but with a thought. When desire is separated from purity and the ennobling intention of the spirit, it begins to bend downward. Instead of warmth, it becomes heat. Instead of upliftment, it becomes consumption. Instead of giving, it demands. The moment desire loses the direction of the light, its natural upward striving, it sinks into the denser realms of the body, becoming enslaved to sensation, craving, fantasy, and excess. This is the spiritual origin of lust, a holy force torn from its proper orbit and dragged into darkness by the wrong volition of man. Lust is a fallen fire. Lust is fallen fire, fire that still burns, but now destroys instead of creates. It blinds the inner sight, clouds the intuition, and enslaves the will. The Grail Message teaches that every fallen force becomes a breeding ground for dark forms. When desire is abused repeatedly, it attracts lower entities, reinforces unhealthy patterns, and builds a web around the soul. Lust is not just a feeling, it is a structure, a tangible form woven through repeated wrong choices. How humanity helped lust grow. Lust became a universal poison not because it was inevitable, but because mankind misused imagination, glorified sensuality, separated sexuality from love, and rejected self-discipline as an outdated virtue. Instead of guarding the sacred creative force, humanity cheapened it. Instead of protecting womanhood and honoring manhood, society trivialized sexuality, commercialized the body, and mocked purity. In doing so, humanity fed the fallen fire until it became a global epidemic, normalized, celebrated, defended, and even marketed as freedom. But lust is not part of human nature. This is the greatest confusion of all. Lust is not natural. Desire is natural. Attraction is natural. Sexuality is natural. Love is divine. But lust is a corruption, a perversion, an unnatural twisting of forces that were originally pure. It is a parasite, not a root. The human spirit was created for purity, not for pollution. It was shaped for nobility, not degradation. Lust is therefore foreign, an intruder, a distortion of the human essence. The hope hidden in this truth. If lust is not natural, then it is not permanent. If it is not inherent, then it can be uprooted. If it is a distortion, then it can be corrected. Man is not doomed to lust, not by nature, heredity, or weakness. He is only enslaved by what he continually nourishes. The origin of lust reveals one of the most powerful truths of the Grail Message. No chain formed by the wrong human will is stronger than the light that created him. When man realigns desire with the light, lust loses its fuel. It weakens, collapses, and eventually dissolves like smoke before the sun. Chapter 2. The Abuse of Creative Force, the Source of All Sexual Corruption. Among all forces entrusted to humanity, none is holier, more powerful, or more dangerous when misused than the creative force. It is the force that enables the continuation of life on earth, the force that binds two souls in mutual upliftment, and the force that opens the door for new spirits to incarnate. Wherever this force is misused, the entire structure of life is shaken. The creative power, a divine gift. The Grail Message reveals that the creative force is an outflowing of a higher spiritual radiation, far above mere physical acts. It carries within it a spark of the same energy through which worlds come into existence. Thus, it is sacred, it is potent, and it demands responsibility. The purpose of the creative force is to ennoble man and woman, to form a spiritual bridge of love, to attract new souls into earthly life, and to strengthen the bond of shared responsibility. Anything outside these laws is misuse. How misuse became naturalized. Humanity began to misuse the creative force when pleasure became separated from responsibility, and sexuality became detached from spiritual significance. Once people began to seek sensation without love, view others as objects, indulge without restraint, stimulate desire artificially, and treat the body as merchandise, the creative force sank into the mud of lust. Because the creative force is so powerful, its misuse has the most devastating spiritual consequences. It is the one area where irresponsible actions echo for years, even lifetimes, because they produce dense forms that cling to the soul. Why lust has such power? Lust feels overpowering because it rides on the back of a massive cosmic force. The creative force is meant to build worlds. When misdirected, it builds personal prisons. Like a powerful river diverted through a narrow channel, misused sexuality creates turbulence, pressure, and explosion. Lust becomes intense precisely because the force behind it is sacred, not because it is evil. The birth of sexual corruption. The abuse of the creative force is the root of all sexual corruption. Addiction, infidelity, pornography, prostitution, sexual violence, abuse of children, objectification of women, and the trivialization of intimacy. These are not random moral problems. They are symptoms of a spiritual disease. The mismanagement of the most delicate force entrusted to mankind. The spiritual debt of lust. Every misuse of the creative force generates heavy consequences. Energetic depletion, loss of clarity, weakening of intuition, attraction of dark entities, entanglement with other souls, and a heavy weight on the spiritual body. This is why lust makes people feel drained, ashamed, anxious, or restless. It is not simply biology, it is spiritual friction. The way back. The way out of lust is not repression or suppression. It is purification. It is understanding. It is redirection. When the creative force is restored to its rightful place. Within love, responsibility, respect, and spiritual awareness. Lust loses its grip. The creative force becomes what it was meant to be. A blessing, not a burden, a source of strength, not slavery. Chapter 3. The difference between attraction, love, sexuality, and lust. Confusion is one of the greatest tools of darkness. Nothing is more confused today than the concepts of attraction, love, sexuality, and lust. Because man has mixed these four distinct forces, he misjudges himself, condemns what is pure, and accepts what is corrupt. This chapter brings clarity through the light of truth. Attraction. The natural pull. Attraction is the simplest and most harmless of the four. It is the natural response of one soul or personality to another through resonance. Attraction may arise from beauty, virtue, intelligence, personality, shared interests, or even karmic ties. Attraction is not sin. It is not lust. It is value recognizing value. Attraction simply says, I notice you, I am drawn to you. It is the spark, not the flame. Love, the highest force. Love is the most misunderstood word on earth. True love lifts, gives, protects, ennobles, sacrifices, respects, and seeks the good of the other before self. Love is light-filled will, not emotion. Love is responsibility, not excitement. Love is self-control, not indulgence. Love is pure warmth, not burning heat. Where love exists, lust cannot dominate. Where lust dominates, love is absent. Sexuality, a sacred physical expression. Sexuality is the earthly expression of spiritual connection. It is meant to be the consummation of true love, the physical seal of a bond that already exists in the spirit. Sexuality is noble when it is rooted in genuine affection. It serves a higher purpose. It is accompanied by responsibility. And it aligns with the laws of creation. Sexuality becomes corrupt only when it is separated from love and responsibility. Lust, the fallen shadow. Lust is desire severed from love. Lust is sexuality without purity. Lust is attraction inflamed by fantasy. Lust is the creative force dragged downward by imagination, habit, and wrong volition. Lust reduces the other person to a body, an object, a means of pleasure, a temporary excitement. Lust consumes. Love gives. Lust enslaves. Love liberates. Lust burns. Love warms. The four forces compared. Force, origin, nature, outcome, attraction, natural resonance, light, neutral, leads to connection, love, spirit, pure, noble, uplifting, builds, protects, ennobles. Sexuality, creative force, sacred when aligned with love, bonds and strengthens. Lust, misused desire, darkened, consuming, enslaves, degrades. Understanding these distinctions is the first step in liberation from lust. Chapter 4. The Inner Fire, How the Imagination Becomes the Throne of Lust. The imagination is one of the most powerful organs of the human spirit. Through it man creates forms, shapes desires, attracts energies, and builds tunnels of connection with other realms. The Grail Message teaches that imagination is not fantasy, it is the workshop of the spirit, the place where forms are constructed before they manifest in the physical world. How imagination becomes a door. Every picture formed in the imagination is real. It is alive. It has substance in the fine material world. Pure imagination creates light-filled forms. Impure imagination creates dark forms. Thus, imagination can either uplift the soul or become the breeding ground of lust. Lust begins in the inner picture. Before lust controls the body, it first conquers the imagination. The inner picture is where desire becomes fantasy. Fantasy becomes craving. Craving becomes compulsion. And compulsion becomes action. The moment the imagination is filled with sensual pictures, the creative force is dragged downward. These pictures attract similar forms from the beyond, reinforcing the lust and giving it a life of its own. Why imagination is the throne of lust? It requires no physical contact. The person believes they are safe because nothing is done, but in truth, energetic chains are already being formed. It builds living images. These images attach themselves to the person and stimulate ever stronger desires. It bypasses moral awareness. Fantasies are indulged in secret, without accountability. It feeds lust even without physical acts. This is why pornography and masturbation are so spiritually destructive. The imagination becomes flooded with impure forms. The downward spiral. The imagination, once given over to lust, becomes a fertile ground for compulsive fantasies, escalating desires, the craving for novelty, and the search for stronger stimulation. Eventually, the person becomes enslaved to images they themselves created. They are trapped inside their own inner cinema. The way out. The throne of lust can become the throne of purity. The same imagination that chained can now liberate. The key is replace every impure image with a pure one. Instead of sensual fantasies, create images of light. Instead of indulging in erotic daydreams, meditate on purity, beauty, dignity. Instead of building dark forms, build radiant ones. When the imagination becomes aligned with the light, lust loses its palace. It becomes homeless. And a homeless force dies quickly. Part 2. How Lust Enslaves the Human Spirit. Chapter 5. The Gradual Descent, How Harmless Curiosity Becomes Chains. No human being falls into lust in a single step. No one is suddenly swallowed by the darkness of sensual addiction overnight. Every chain begins as a thread, every thread begins as a whisper, every whisper begins as curiosity. The tragedy is that mankind mistakes the beginning for harmlessness. The first step, innocent curiosity. A glance. A suggestion. A thought. A moment of interest in what seems harmless. It may begin with curiosity about the opposite sex. A light flirtation. A provocative image. A sensual scene in a film. A harmless joke. Browsing where we should not. Indulging an unnecessary fantasy. Curiosity itself is not the sin. But it opens a door. And every door opens either upward or downward. The second step, repeated attention. What is looked at once with curiosity is looked at again with interest. And again. And again. The mind begins to linger. The imagination begins to magnify. Desire begins to awaken. The person does not yet see danger. They believe they are in control. This is the illusion that traps millions. The first chain is forged here, attention. Where attention goes, will follows. And where will follows, forms are created. The third step, secret indulgence. Curiosity becomes private habit. Private habit becomes secrecy. Secrecy creates shame. Shame drives the habit deeper into the shadows. The person begins to justify themselves. It is only in my mind. I can stop whenever I want. At least I'm not hurting anyone. It's better than doing it physically. But already the chains are tightening. What was once harmless now has become a daily indulgence, a source of excitement, a mental escape, a secret craving. The fourth step, dependence. At this stage, the person no longer seeks lust, lust seeks them. The inner images they created return with force. Thoughts arise uninvited. Desires erupt without warning. Triggers appear everywhere. This is where many cry. I don't know how I got here. But the truth is simple. They walked slowly down the path of curiosity until the gate closed behind them. The final step, the chain of compulsion. A compulsion is a force stronger than physical strength and stronger than emotion. Compulsion is the sign that a living form has been created, a form that demands nourishment through repetition. This is why habits become addictions. The chain is now complete. No one deliberately chooses slavery. Everyone begins with curiosity. The hope in understanding the descent. If every fall begins gradually, then every ascent must also begin gradually. If curiosity opened the way downward, then awareness opens the way upward. Understanding how the descent occurs gives humanity the power to reverse it. Chapter 6. Temptation, Resonance, and Magnetism, How Lust Gains Entry. Temptation is not an enemy that forces its way in. Temptation is an invitation, one that finds acceptance only where inner resonance exists. The Grail Message teaches that nothing can enter a human soul that does not find a corresponding vibration within it. This is the law of spiritual magnetism. How temptation works. Temptation is not sin. Temptation is simply the appearance of an image, person, thought, or situation that awakens what already exists within the person. A man cannot be tempted by what means nothing to him. A woman cannot be drawn to what she has no inner affinity with. Thus the key is not the temptation itself, but the resonance within. The 3 steps of temptation. The external trigger. This may be something seen, heard, or imagined. It may be a memory, a movie scene, a conversation, a person, or a past experience. The inner stirring. If an inner weakness exists, the trigger awakens it. The spirit feels a pull. The body reacts. The imagination begins to work. The will aligns. Temptation becomes sin only when the will agrees. The moment the inner yes is given, the door opens, and lust enters. Why some people fall easily. Many believe that strong temptation is a sign of weakness. But temptation reveals only one thing: the presence of a sleeping resonance within the soul. This resonance may come from previous indulgence, past lives, inherited tendencies, wrong associations, or self-created images. Temptation is a mirror, not a master. It shows the truth of one's inner state. The magnetism of lust. Lust has its own magnetic field. It broadcasts signals. It attracts similar vibrations. It pulls together those who share the same weaknesses. Just as pure souls attract purity, impure souls attract impurity. Lust draws to itself everything that feeds it. Sensual music, erotic imagery, provocative clothing, indulgent friendships, careless environments. This is why overcoming lust requires breaking all bridges that feed the magnetism. How lust gains entry. Lust does not break down doors. Lust whispers. If the will listens, the whisper becomes a voice. If the will listens again, the voice becomes a command. The entry point is the will. Not the temptation. Not the environment. Not the trigger. The will is the gatekeeper. Only when it gives consent can lust step in. Victory through awareness. Once a person understands the laws of resonance, temptation loses its terror. Temptation no longer feels like a foreign attack but a revelation of what needs purification. Instead of shame, there is clarity. Instead of fear, there is strength. Instead of defeat, there is responsibility. And responsibility is the beginning of freedom. Chapter 7. The Power of Sensual Images, How Thoughts Become Living Forms. Thoughts are not abstract. Imagination is not harmless. Inner pictures are not illusions. In the Grail Message, thoughts are described as living forms, fine material creations that go out into the world, attract similar forms, and return with multiplied strength. This law is terrifying for the impure and liberating for the pure. The birth of a thought form. Every sensual image created by the human imagination produces a living form. These forms are shaped by the intensity of the desire, the clarity of the image, the repetition of the thought, and the emotional energy behind it. These forms cluster around the person, constantly stimulating further desire. Why sensual images are so powerful? They never die on their own. They exist as long as the person continues feeding them. They seek expression. Thought forms pressure the person to act so they can grow stronger. They attract external stimuli. They magnetically draw similar people, situations, and temptations. They reshape personality. They cloud judgment, distort perception, and weaken self-control. They create addiction. The more the person feeds the images, the stronger they become. The inner world of the lustful. A person enslaved by lust carries around them a dense cloud of sensual forms. Images of bodies, fantasies, scenes, memories, desires. These forms float around the soul, pressing inwards, demanding attention, igniting cravings at random moments, during prayer, at work, at night, even in holy places. The person believes they are being attacked. But they are being confronted by their own creations. The role of pornography in media. Pornography creates billions of dark forms that rush toward anyone who opens the door. These images are extremely dense because they are created by millions of viewers, intense desire, commercial exploitation, and repeated indulgence. Thus, pornography is one of the greatest spiritual poisons of our age. It multiplies lust at an inhuman scale. How to dissolve thought forms. A sensual thought form starves when you stop feeding it. Each time it arises, replace it with a pure image. Redirect your attention. Refuse to indulge. Call upon the light with inner earnestness. Soon it weakens, shrinks, and dies. This is not imagination. This is law. The person who purifies their thought world becomes free. Chapter 8. The great son of laziness, the root of all sensual weakness. Lust is not born from strength, it is born from weakness. Not from the presence of evil, but from the absence of effort. The Grail Message describes spiritual laziness as one of humanity's greatest failings. It is the soil in which all sensual sins take root. What is spiritual laziness? Spiritual laziness is failure to watch over one's inner life, unwillingness to make effort, negligence in thought, carelessness in will, letting emotions drift unchecked, preferring pleasure to discipline. It is the decision to drift instead of steer. Why laziness leads to lust. Lust requires only one thing to grow: neglect. If a person refuses to guard their imagination, discipline their thoughts, avoid triggers, establish boundaries, and strengthen their will, lust will enter as naturally as weeds enter an untended field. Laziness is the open gate. Lust is the thief who walks through it. The comfort-seeking spirit. Modern humanity worships comfort. Comfort in pleasure. Comfort in entertainment. Comfort in sensual stimulation. Comfort in emotional indulgence. Comfort dulls vigilance. Where vigilance dies, lust thrives. The body rules when the spirit sleeps. When the spirit becomes lazy, the body takes command. The senses become the master, and the spirit becomes the servant. Man then behaves like a creature driven by instinct rather than a being of light driven by will. This reversal is the foundation of all lust. Laziness weakens the will. Lust is not defeated by shame, guilt, or fear. It is defeated only by strength of will. But laziness weakens the will like a disease. It dulls resolve, weakens determination, destroys discipline, and makes excuses feel like truth. A weak will cannot resist temptation. A weak will cannot reject fantasy. A weak will cannot uproot lust. The way out: awaken. The greatest turning point in overcoming lust is learning to say, "I will no longer drift." The moment the will awakens, lust begins to lose its dominion. Every effort strengthens the spirit. Every decision sharpens intuition. Every act of discipline builds inner fire. The strong spirit is like the sun. Lust cannot stand in its light. Part 3. The Consequences of Lust. Chapter 9. The Law of Reciprocal Action, Lust's Harvest. Lust never ends where it begins. It begins with a whisper but ends with a harvest. Humanity has long comforted itself with the illusion that thoughts don't matter, and desires are harmless as long as no one sees them. But the laws of creation, living, incorruptible, and eternally active, allow no such deception. Every thought, every desire, every imagination forms a seed that must bring forth fruit according to its nature. This is the law of reciprocal action, the mighty law that ensures the justice of the universe. Lust, as a distorted misuse of the creative force, produces seeds of darkness that cannot return as light. It returns exactly as what went out, only multiplied, intensified, woven into the destiny of the human spirit. 1. The unseen beginnings of the harvest. The harvest of lust does not start outwardly, it begins inwardly. When a human being indulges in lust, even secretly, the first result is weakening of willpower, clarity of thought, inner purity, spiritual stamina, sense of dignity. This is because lust draws the threads of the spirit downward, into denser, darker spheres where sensual thought forms live. These thought forms then link back to the spirit, influencing and feeding the very individual who created them. Thus the harvest begins within before it expresses without. 2. The law of attraction of homogeneous species. Every lustful thought attracts similar forms from the realm of thoughts. Every lustful imagination draws to itself entities, influences, and vibrations that resonate with its frequency. The one who indulges in lust opens himself to a stream of energies that gradually, but surely, take control of his inner life. He becomes easily tempted, easily entangled, easily enslaved, and eventually unable to resist even when he desperately wants to. This is not coincidence, it is law. 3. Outward consequences. The harvest of lust manifests outwardly in many ways. Difficulty forming genuine relationships. Shattered trust in marriages. Addiction that grows with time. Loss of respect from others. Moral compromises that lead to shame. Confusion, instability, and inner unrest. Diseases of mind, soul, and even body. Lust clouds judgment, lowers moral stamina, and makes a human being impulsive. It robs him of the ability to choose wisely and act nobly. It may start with a secret indulgence in private thoughts, but it ends in visible fruits, broken families, wounded hearts, destroyed destinies. 4. The final harvest. Spiritual darkness. If a human spirit persists in lust, unrepented and unchecked, the final harvest is spiritual darkness. Not because God punishes, but because the soul, heavy, darkened, and weakened, cannot ascend to the higher realms where purity reigns. Lust chains the spirit to the lower regions after physical death, where similar forms exist. This is not imagination, it is reality. The harvest of lust is always bitter. 5. But the law is also the path to liberation. The same law that binds also liberates. As soon as a human being turns away from lust and begins to strive toward purity, he immediately sows new seeds whose harvest will come with healing, strength, and clarity. The law works both ways. Sow darkness, receive darkness. Sow purity, receive purity. Sow self-control, receive inner freedom. Sow noble thought, receive higher guidance. The universe responds with perfect justice. Lust has consequences, but purity has greater rewards. Chapter 10. The souled soul, shame, emptiness, and the inner wound. There is a unique kind of suffering that only those trapped in lust understand. It is not physical pain. It is not financial loss. It is not the disappointment of failure. It is the silent, gnawing pain within the soul, the sense of inner emptiness, shame, and self-betrayal. This chapter unveils the psychological and spiritual wounds produced by lust, wounds often invisible, yet deeper than any human word can describe. 1. Shame. The voice of the spirit. Shame is not an enemy. It is the final cry of the spirit, the warning bell that signals. You are moving away from the light. Lust produces shame because it violates the natural purity of the spirit. A person may hide his lust from others, but he cannot hide from himself. The spirit knows that it has misused the sacred creative force. And so shame emerges, not to condemn, but to awaken. When shame is ignored, it becomes numb. When it becomes numb, the spirit sinks deeper. 2. The emptiness that follows after lust. Every act of lust leaves behind an emptiness, an immediate vacuum. This emptiness is not accidental. It is the natural consequence of a spiritual law. Why? Because lust gives nothing to the spirit. It does not uplift. It does not nourish. It does not strengthen. It drains. It pulls the spirit downward, leaving it weaker than before, and so the person seeks more lust to fill the new emptiness. But every indulgence deepens the hollow. Thus begins a cycle of desire leads to indulgence, indulgence leads to emptiness, emptiness leads to stronger desire lead to deeper emptiness. This is the foundation of addiction. 3. The inner wound. Lust wounds the soul by distorting its natural purity, weakening its will, fragmenting its peace, and dragging it into foreign spheres. The wound grows with every indulgence. It becomes a tear in the inner fabric of the personality. This is why many who fall deeply into lust start to lose self-confidence, retreat into isolation, avoid eye contact, feel secretly unworthy, experience spiritual dryness. The soul is injured and cannot radiate naturally. 4. Lust separates the spirit from God. Not because God withdraws, but because lust creates a wall through which the light cannot penetrate. The spirit becomes insensitive to intuition, deaf to inner warnings, blind to danger, weak against temptation. This is the greatest tragedy of lust, not the act itself, but the distance it creates between the soul and the light. 5. Restoration is possible. No wound is too deep for the light, if the human being turns honestly and earnestly upward. The shame can be transformed into humility. The emptiness can become longing for purity. The wound can become the doorway to renewal. Lust breaks, but the light heals. This healing begins the moment the human being says, with sincerity, "I desire to be clean." Chapter 11. Karma, Destiny, and Sexual Misdeeds. Every sexual action, whether physical or internal, creates consequences that extend beyond a single lifetime. Lust weaves itself into the fabric of destiny, shaping future circumstances. In this chapter, we explore how karma and destiny are affected by lust according to the Grail laws. 1. Every sexual misdeed creates chains. Sexual energy is creative energy, the same energy with which the universe itself is woven. To misuse it is to misuse life. Such misuse binds the spirit through the law of reciprocal action, creating karmic threads that must be resolved in future. Relationships, marriages, encounters, experiences, and even illnesses. These do not come as punishment, but as consequences. 2. The karmic web of sexual actions. Sexual sin has deeper karmic consequences than many other misdeeds because it involves the misuse of the creative force. It affects another soul directly or indirectly. It influences the spiritual development of multiple individuals. It disrupts harmony in the deepest of human bonds. Thus sexual karma can manifest as unhappy marriages, betrayal and heartbreak, lack of inner peace, repeated cycles of temptation, attraction to wrong partners, inability to sustain healthy relationships, sorrow involving children or family lines. These are not curses. They are the natural balancing of creation. 3. Destiny is self-created. The spirit is not a victim. It walks in the paths it created. If one misuses sexual energy in one lifetime, he will meet, sooner or later, the consequences in another. This may include encountering a person previously harmed, being put in situations requiring resistance to past weaknesses, carrying the inner struggle into new circumstances, needing to learn discipline where once there was surrender. Nothing is lost. Nothing is forgotten. Everything returns. 4. Purification of sexual karma. Sexual karma can be resolved through genuine repentance, self-control, service to others, purity of thought, and living according to the laws. Once the spirit changes direction, the weight lessens. Karmic knots begin to loosen. The universe responds immediately when the soul strives for purity. 5. The light always provides a path. Destiny is not a prison. It is a teacher. The consequences of lust exist to awaken the spirit, correct it, and return it to purity. There is always a path forward, for whoever seeks it. Chapter 12. Collective Lust. How nations, media, religion, and culture are drowning humanity. Lust is no longer merely a personal struggle. It has become a collective force consuming humanity. Nations, media, industries, even religious bodies have become channels through which sensual corruption flows freely. Humanity is now swimming in a global sea of sexual pollution. This chapter exposes the large-scale consequences of collective lust. 1. When society normalizes darkness. Lust has been normalized, celebrated, and monetized. It is promoted through movies, music, advertising, fashion, social media, pornography, even educational materials. What was once shameful is now entertainment. What was once hidden is now mainstream. Humanity has inverted values. 2. The media as a global tempter. Modern media has weaponized the senses. Through images, videos, and advertisements, billions are exposed daily to content designed to stimulate lust. The human spirit, especially the young, cannot withstand the constant bombardment. The result: early addiction, premature sexual awakening, weakened moral discipline, distorted understanding of love, shallow relationships, inward deadness. The media has become the new teacher, and its lessons are poison. 3. Nations that build on sensuality invite decay. History shows that societies dominated by sensual excess eventually fall. Why? Because lust weakens discipline, responsibility, courage, clarity, morality, spiritual sensitivity. Weak individuals cannot build strong nations. Lust destroys the very core of a people's vitality. 4. Religion has not escaped corruption. Even religious institutions have been polluted. Scandals among clergy, abuse of power for sensual gain, hypocrisy that drives seekers away, silence toward immorality, compromise with worldly standards. When the guardians of morality fall, the collapse of society accelerates. 5. Culture has become a mirror of humanity's decay. Songs celebrate lust. Fashion reveals what should remain concealed. Social media rewards sensual display. Celebrities model corruption. Governments ignore virtue. Humanity is drowning because it swims willingly in polluted waters. 6. But a purified remnant will stand. Even in the midst of collective corruption, individuals can rise. The laws respond to individual striving. Purity shines brighter in darkness. The one who seeks light will find it, no matter how corrupt the world becomes. The collective may be sinking, but the individual can ascend. The light is never eclipsed. Part 4. The Path Out of Lust. Chapter 13. Recognition, the first day of freedom. Liberation from lust does not begin with effort. It does not begin with struggle. It does not begin with discipline. It begins with the light of recognition. Recognition is the moment the human spirit finally sees reality, not as it wishes it to be, but as it is. It is the first ray of light penetrating the dark chambers of self-deception. It is the moment a person says, "I am enslaved, and I need help." This is the first day of freedom. 1. Recognition requires light. Lust thrives in darkness. It feeds on secrecy. It survives through excuses, justifications, half-truths, and illusions. The moment a human being steps into honesty, lust loses its first and strongest shield. To recognize the truth about oneself is an act of courage. It requires humility. It requires inner sincerity. The Grail Message teaches that enlightenment begins only when the human being opens his interior eyes, when he dares to look at himself without masks. 2. The two forms of recognition. Recognition comes in two forms. A. Intellectual recognition. This happens when the mind acknowledges lust is wrong. Lust is destructive. Lust enslaves. This recognition is theoretical, fragile, and often temporary. It is good, but not enough. B. Spiritual recognition. This is deeper. It shakes the soul. It breaks illusions. It awakens the conscience. Spiritual recognition is the moment a person feels, "I cannot continue like this, my soul is dying." This moment is powerful. It marks the beginning of liberation. 3. Recognition reveals the enemy. Lust is not the person. It is a foreign growth attached to the person through habit, imagery, resonance, and indulgence. Recognition allows the individual to separate himself from the lust within him and see, "This is not me, This is my weakness. The moment you step outside the cycle, you gain the power to break it. 4. Recognition breaks self-deception. Every enslaved person has excuses. I'm only human. It's natural. I can stop anytime. It's not hurting anyone. It's just a private thought. Recognition exposes the lie in these statements. It shows the consequences. It confronts the truth. Self-deception is the rope that binds the soul. Recognition is the knife that cuts it. 5. Recognition awakens desire for purity. The spirit wants purity. It longs for clarity. It yearns for noble love. When the fog of lust clears, even for a moment, the spirit glimpses what it was created for. This awakening is painful but beautiful. It marks the first sunrise after a long night. Recognition is not the end of the battle. It is the beginning of hope. Chapter 14. Repentance, the turning of the spirit. Repentance is not guilt. It is not sorrow. It is not emotional distress. Repentance is the reorientation of the will, the turning of the spirit toward the light. It is the moment a person decides, I no longer want this. I want to be clean. 1. What repentance really is. True repentance is not merely regret. Regret looks backward. Repentance looks upward. Regret cries. Repentance stands. Regret is emotional. Repentance is volitional. Repentance is when the spirit turns its face toward purity and says, my path must change. This turning is the greatest spiritual act a human being can perform, because it opens the soul to the inflow of the light. 2. Why repentance is necessary for liberation. Lust is not defeated through willpower alone. If it could be, millions would be free already. Lust is a spiritual entanglement. Therefore liberation must also be spiritual. Repentance connects the soul back to the higher spheres. It reopens the channels to purity, strength, and clarity. The light cannot help a person who does not want help. Repentance signals the will. I desire liberation. Then the universe responds. 3. The elements of true repentance. Repentance has 3 components. A. Honest sorrow for wrong. Not self-hatred, but the pain of realizing how far one has fallen from the light. B. A firm decision to change. A vow within the spirit, not spoken aloud, saying, I will no longer cooperate with darkness. C. A turning of the gaze toward purity. The spirit must align with upward striving, not merely avoidance of wrong. 4. Repentance breaks karmic chains. When a person repents sincerely, past seeds begin to dissolve. Karmic knots loosen. Temptations lose power. Help from above finds access. Inner strength awakens. Repentance is like a key that unlocks a long-closed gate. 5. Repentance is the beginning of renewal. Many fear repentance because they think it brings punishment. But true repentance brings peace, relief, clarity, lightness, hope. The universe is not waiting to punish but to heal. The moment a person turns toward the light, the path of liberation opens. Chapter 15. The Reversal, How Purity Dissolves Lust. Lust is not defeated by fighting it directly. It is not overcome by struggle, tension, or fear. Darkness cannot be pushed out. Only light can dissolve it. This chapter reveals the mystery of reversal, the Grail principle through which purity replaces corruption, strength replaces weakness, and clarity replaces confusion. 1. The law. Darkness vanishes when light is allowed in. Lust cannot feed where purity dwells. It cannot breathe where clarity reigns. It cannot root where the will is clean. The path out of lust is a path toward something, not merely away from something. Lust dies when the soul becomes bright. 2. The reversal begins with new seeds. A person trapped in lust has spent years planting seeds of sensual imagery, indulgent imagination, emotional weakness, lack of discipline, inner passivity, impurity. The reversal begins when he starts planting new seeds of self-control, noble thoughts, gratitude, purity, purposeful living, inner refinement. These new seeds gradually grow and push out the old roots. 3. The secret of replacement. The Grail Message teaches a profound law. Displacement is stronger than suppression. Trying to suppress lust only strengthens it. Trying to replace it dissolves it. Replace lustful imagination with noble imagination. Replace idle time with purposeful action. Replace sensual interest with spiritual interest. Replace impurity with purity. Where light enters, darkness cannot remain. 4. Purity is a force. Purity is not passive. It is an active, radiant, living force. When purity enters the soul, it cleanses, strengthens, illuminates, inspires, stabilizes, uplifts. Purity is like the rising sun that burns away the morning mist. Lust dissolves before a pure will like wax before fire. 5. The reversal leads to inner victory. The person who continues in purity will one day discover lust no longer controls him. Temptations lose their sting. Sensual images fade. Self-respect blossoms. Inner joy emerges. Clarity returns. He becomes whole again. The reversal is gradual, gentle, and powerful. It is the return of the spirit to its natural state. Chapter 16. The purification of thought, desire, and body. Purification is not a single act. It is a transformation of the entire human being. Lust enslaves through 3 gateways: thought, desire, and body. Liberation must therefore enter through the same 3 gateways. This chapter provides the complete process of purification. 1. Purification of thought. The battlefield of lust is the mind. Victory begins here. A. Remove the images. Sensual images are seeds. Delete them from memory, devices, media consumption, and imagination. B. Replace thoughts immediately. Do not fight lustful thoughts, replace them with gratitude, noble ideals, prayer, purposeful plans, uplifting reading. C. Discipline the imagination. Imagination is the throne where lust grows. Therefore, do not dwell on fantasies. Do not replay sensual moments. Do not entertain harmless thoughts. Every thought is a seed. Every seed becomes a destiny. 2. Purification of desire. Desire is fire. It can burn or illuminate. Purification of desire means redirecting sexual energy upward, not suppressing it. A. Desire governed by the spirit. The spirit must rule desire. Not desire rule the spirit. B. Noble desire strengthens. Desire for purity, clarity, service, and noble love dissolves lower cravings. C. Fasting of the will. The will must say no immediately when temptation arises. The earlier the no, the easier the victory. 3. Purification of the body. The body was never meant to govern the spirit. But in lust, the body becomes the tyrant. Purification of the body requires a. Order in lifestyle. Regular sleep. Healthy food. Avoidance of stimulants. Physical activity. A chaotic body fuels chaotic desires. B. Avoidance of triggers. Loneliness. Idleness. Provocative content. Unhealthy company. Sensory overstimulation. C. Consciously cultivate dignity. Stand, move, dress, and live in a way that honors the spirit. The body must become the servant of purity, not the slave of lust. 4. The unified transformation. When thoughts are purified, desires are refined, and the body is disciplined, lust loses all foothold. Purification leads to inner harmony, peace of mind, strength of will, reverence for love, spiritual sensitivity, radiant purity. Purification is not a burden. It is liberation. It restores the spirit to what it was always meant to be. A child of the light, pure, noble, and free. Part 5. Living above lust. Chapter 17. The right attitude toward God's laws. The human spirit can never rise above lust, or any weakness, until it possesses the right attitude toward the laws that govern creation. These laws are not religious rules, not human inventions, not cultural customs. They are living, perfect, incorruptible currents flowing from the will of God. To understand lust, resist lust, and rise above lust, a person must align with these laws. Only then can he stand within the stream of power that keeps him upright. 1. God's laws are perfect order. Everything in creation operates according to precise laws. The movement of planets, the growth of plants, the flow of thoughts, the forming of inner images, all stand under a perfect, majestic order. There is the law of reciprocal action, what one sends out returns. The law of attraction of homogeneous species, like attracts like. The law of spiritual gravity, the spirit rises or sinks according to its nature. The law of movement, only what strives ascends. Lust functions through these laws. Liberation also functions through these laws. When one understands the laws, he understands the roots of his fall and the path of his rise. 2. The spirit must reverently submit. Living above lust requires a humble, grateful, and reverent relationship to the laws. The mistake of many. They try to be pure while inwardly resisting the commandments of life. They want the joy of purity, without the discipline of purity. The glory of freedom, without the sacrifice of self-will. The power of self-mastery, without surrender to higher order. This is impossible. Purity requires alignment. Freedom requires obedience to spiritual structure. The right attitude is: your laws are life. Your order is blessing. Your purity is my protection. 3. Lust thrives where the laws are ignored. Lust grows when the imagination is undisciplined. Thoughts wander aimlessly. Idleness is tolerated. Desires are given free rein. Boundaries are despised. Conscience is ignored. All these are violations of spiritual law. To live above lust is to live within the guarding walls of the laws. The laws are not chains. They are walls that keep wolves out. 4. The laws provide strength against temptation. Temptation has power only where the laws are not honored. When your attitude is, I desire to live according to the will of God, temptations lose force because your will is not standing alone, it is upheld by the currents of the light. Lust becomes weak because you are no longer feeding it. Purity becomes radiant because you are feeding it. 5. The right attitude creates a shield. A reverent attitude toward God's laws forms a shield, a clarity, a firmness, an inner authority, a sense of responsibility. The person who walks reverently is protected. The person who walks casually is exposed. The right attitude transforms the entire inner life. And only with this transformation can one begin truly living above lust. Chapter 18. Purity is strength, the radiant aura that repels darkness. Many people misunderstand purity. They think purity is fragile, delicate, passive, or weak. They imagine purity as a soft flower that must be protected. But purity is power. It is fire. It is radiance. It is a blazing light that blinds darkness and repels every form of corruption. Purity is the greatest strength the human spirit can possess. 1. Purity is a force of light. Purity is not merely absence of sin. It is a positive, active, living radiation. In the Grail Message it is revealed that everything in creation radiates. A pure spirit radiates clarity, nobility, and strength. This radiation forms a shield, a barrier, a protective atmosphere. Darkness cannot penetrate this aura easily. Lust cannot find resonance in a soul that is glowing with purity. 2. Purity repels darkness automatically. Wherever purity dwells, impurity cannot remain. A person does not need to force darkness out. He simply needs to let purity grow, and darkness withdraws. Lust thoughts find no soil. Temptations strike a wall of light. Sensual fantasies lose their grip. Old habits weaken. The aura of purity is like a spiritual immune system. 3. Purity awakens spiritual vision. A pure person sees danger quickly, temptation early, motives clearly, inner images accurately. Because impurity clouds perception. It distorts reality. It weakens intuition. Purity restores clarity. It sharpens the conscience. It brings back the quiet inner voice. A pure person can sense the approach of danger before it enters. 4. The aura reflects the inner state. When the inner life is disciplined, clean, noble, striving, grateful, humble, God-centered, it radiates outward in a protective field. When the inner life is lazy, sensual, resentful, proud, idle, ungrateful, chaotic, it becomes porous, penetrable, and weak. Purity is not a coincidence. It is the harvest of inner discipline. 5. Purity is attractive to the light. The more a person cultivates purity, the stronger the light supports him. The more noble helpers surround him, the clearer his path becomes. The easier temptation becomes to resist. Purity draws divine assistance. Purity resonates with higher realms. Purity connects the soul to its true home. Purity is strength, not fragility. And he who possesses purity becomes a fortress of light. Chapter 19. The life of a liberated spirit. Freedom from lust does not produce emptiness. It produces fullness. It produces joy. It produces clarity. It produces purpose. The liberated spirit is a different human being altogether, new in thought, new in feeling, new in will, new in radiance. 1. A liberated spirit lives with joy. Lust offers pleasure. But pleasure is weak, temporary, draining. A liberated spirit possesses joy. Quiet, deep, stable, uplifting, energizing. Joy is the natural fragrance of purity. The more pure a person becomes, the more joy he experiences. 2. A liberated spirit lives with peace. The mind is calm. Thoughts are orderly. Emotions are governed. Desires no longer storm the gates. Memories no longer accuse. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of harmony. Inner harmony is impossible for a lust-enslaved soul. But it is natural for a purified soul. 3. A liberated spirit lives with self-respect. Lust robs dignity. It destroys confidence. It poisons self-image. But once freed, a person rediscovers his worth, his nobility, his inner value, his spiritual identity. The liberated spirit respects himself. He walks with dignity. He moves with purpose. He thinks with clarity. 4. A liberated spirit becomes a blessing to others. Purity radiates. Others feel uplifted in his presence. People sense something clean, calm, reliable, trustworthy. The liberated spirit becomes a source of strength, a refuge, a guiding light, a channel of blessing. His presence generates peace. His words carry weight. His actions build trust. 5. A liberated spirit lives with purpose. Lust wastes life. It drains energy. It destroys focus. Purity concentrates life. It awakens purpose. It calls forth mission. The liberated spirit begins to live according to his true calling. Serving, building, creating, uplifting, inspiring. He becomes what he was created to be. A living instrument of light. Chapter 20. The triumph of light over sensual darkness. The final victory over lust is not a battle fought once. It is a state of being realized gradually, then firmly anchored. The triumph of light is the triumph of your true nature over everything that once held you down. 1. Victory comes through alignment, not struggle. Many try to defeat lust through force, fear, guilt, effort, suppression. These methods fail because they rely on the lower self. Victory comes through upward striving, purity, discipline, reverence, humility, obedience to spiritual law. This aligns the human spirit with the light, and the light achieves the victory. 2. Light dissolves darkness without effort. Where light shines, darkness must withdraw. This is not philosophy. It is law. When your inner life becomes light, temptations lose their power. Old habits weaken. Sensual images crumble. Desires fade. Peace grows. Strength increases. Joy becomes natural. The triumph is not dramatic. It is quiet, steady, powerful, like dawn overcoming night. 3. The spirit becomes untouchable. A person who lives in the light becomes inwardly untouchable, spiritually firm, emotionally stable, mentally clear. Lust cannot approach him because there is no resonance. He no longer vibrates with sensual cravings. He vibrates with purity, purpose, and strength. 4. Light gives new power to love. Lust destroys love. Purity resurrects it. The triumph of light brings genuine love, noble feeling, deep respect, healthy relationships, true attraction, harmonious sexuality within lawful marriage, spiritual partnership. Where light rules, love thrives. 5. Light makes you a warrior of purity. The final triumph transforms the soul from victim into victor. You become a fighter for light, a guardian of purity, a defender of dignity, a builder of truth, not through aggression, but through radiance. You walk in light. You radiate light. You uphold light. You spread light. This is the triumph of the human spirit over sensual darkness. The triumph of purity over corruption. The triumph of the light over all that once tried to destroy you. Back matter. Conclusion. Lust is not destiny. Purity awaits all who turn. Lust presents itself to humanity as an irresistible force, a shadowy instinct too deeply woven into the flesh and imagination to ever be overcome. For thousands of years, men and women have bowed before it, excusing it as human weakness, normal pleasure-seeking, or even human nature itself. Civilization after civilization has adjusted its moral framework to accommodate it rather than conquer it. But this resignation is a lie, one of the most destructive lies ever whispered into the human soul. Lust is not destiny. Lust is not identity. Lust is not an unchangeable part of the human spirit. It is an accretion, an infection, a foreign growth clinging to the soul through wrong desires, wrong imagery, spiritual indolence, and repeated consent. Lust is something we carry, not something we are. And whatever the human spirit has taken on, the human spirit can also cast off, once it awakens. The power that frees. The moment a human being recognizes the true nature of lust, not as pleasure but as bondage, the chains already begin to crack. Recognition is the spark, repentance is the turning, purity is the cleansing fire. In reality, no human being is ever more than one honest decision away from the beginning of freedom. The laws of creation, though strict, are unimaginably merciful. They do not trap, they educate. They do not punish, they unveil. Every pain brought by lust only serves as a bell, calling the soul to turn away from the wrong path. Every inner wound is an opening for healing. The moment a person wills purity, truly wills it, the currents of light begin to surround him. Helpers he cannot see are immediately permitted to assist him. Strength flows toward him. Protection gathers around him. Lust thrives only in darkness. The moment a person turns toward light, lust begins to starve. A new human race. Those who free themselves from lust become pillars of a renewed humanity. They radiate clarity. Their presence uplifts others. Their relationships transform. Their inner world becomes fertile ground for spiritual growth, creativity, and noble love. Every soul that conquers lust pushes back the darkness covering the earth. The victory of even one person matters. And for all who feel trapped today, who feel too dirty, too far gone, too wounded, or too enslaved, the truth stands as a banner of hope. Purity awaits all who turn. The light has never withdrawn. The path is always open. Freedom is possible for every human spirit. Epilogue. The purification of humanity and the dawn of the new earth. Lust is not merely an individual issue, it has become a global spiritual epidemic. Humanity stands today beneath a dome of sensual darkness generated by centuries of indulgence, perversion, exploitation, and misuse of the creative force. This dome affects culture, religion, politics, entertainment, relationships, and the very atmosphere of thought. Yet this dome is already cracking. A great purification is underway. A world in transition. We live in the time foretold, the time when all that is unclean must rise to the surface for judgment. Lust, as one of the most widespread impurities, is now manifesting everywhere. In collapsing marriages. In abuse scandals across institutions. In the hypersexualization of society. In spiritual blindness. In psychological fragmentation. In cultural moral decay. Yet this is not a sign of defeat, it is a sign of exposure. And exposure is the mercy before cleansing. The coming purification. According to the eternal laws of creation, nothing unclean can remain in the coming age of renewal. Humanity will be sifted, nations will be purified, institutions will crumble, false teachings will collapse under the weight of their own lies. The misuse of the sexual force, long hidden, normalized, or excused, will be brought into the open. Every soul will face the truth of its creations. Not to shame but to heal, not to condemn but to liberate. The coming age will belong only to those who stand in purity. The new earth. On the new earth, love will no longer be confused with lust. Relationships will be built on clarity and respect. Children will grow in atmospheres free from sensual poison. Men and women will awaken to the sacredness of the creative force. Work, art, and culture will once again reflect light. The human spirit will rise to the beauty originally intended for it. And those who overcome lust today will be the builders of this renewed world. They will form the foundation of a purified humanity. The dawn is approaching. Only purity will stand in its light. Appendix A. The laws of creation that govern lust. This appendix summarizes the primary laws, revealed clearly in the Grail Message, that regulate lust, desire, purity, and spiritual movement. 1. The law of homogeneous species. Every kind of thought, desire, and inner movement connects the soul with its corresponding species in the beyond. Pure thoughts connect us with luminous heights. Sensual or lustful thoughts connect us with dark forms that feed on impurity. Thus, lust is not merely thoughts, it is connection with real forces. 2. The law of attraction of homogeneous species. Whatever you carry within attracts similar forms from the environment. A person with sensual desires will notice sensual stimuli everywhere, attract situations that trigger lust, draw dark entities that magnify impulses. Purity, on the other hand, attracts purity. 3. The law of reciprocal action. Whatever we send out in thought, desire, or action returns to us amplified. Lust returns as emotional emptiness, broken relationships, addiction, confusion, spiritual weakness. Purity returns as clarity, joy, strength, spiritual protection. 4. The law of spiritual gravity. Dark desires are heavy and drag the soul downward. Pure desires are light and lift it upward. Lust literally pulls the soul into darker regions of existence. 5. The law of movement. Only movement brings life. Spiritual laziness strengthens lust because it leaves the inner world unguarded and stagnant. Purity requires conscious, daily inner movement. 6. The law of the creative force. The sexual force belongs to the highest creative laws of the universe. Misusing it generates the heaviest karma. Using it rightly brings blessing and light. Appendix B. Modern-day manifestations of lust. Humanity today swims in an ocean of sensual temptation. Lust is no longer hidden. It is a commodity, an entertainment, a lifestyle, an identity, and even a philosophy. Below are examples of how lust manifests today. 1. Media and entertainment. Hypersexualized music videos. Pornographic culture. Fashion designed to provoke desire. Films that glorify immorality. Social media that monetizes sensuality. 2. Technology. Pornographic websites. Dating apps based purely on looks and sensuality. AI-generated sexual content. Virtual sexual experiences. Sexting and digital seduction. 3. Relationships. Casual sex. Cheating and emotional affairs. Cohabitation purely for sensual comfort. Marriage based on desire instead of love. Sexual exploitation. 4. Religion and spirituality. Ministers falling into sexual scandals. Misinterpretation of grace to permit impurity. The false idea that sexual sin is natural. Hypocrisy and hidden immoral lifestyles. 5. Culture. The normalization of erotic imagery. Fashion trends that degrade dignity. Music that glorifies promiscuity. The acceptance of pornography as entertainment. The idea that lust is a harmless appetite. These manifestations show how deeply lust has infiltrated the earth, and why enlightenment is urgently needed. Appendix C. Practical daily exercises for inner purification. Purification from lust is not achieved through mere wishful thinking, strong resolutions, or emotional remorse. It requires daily, deliberate, inner work, steady, consistent spiritual exercise that transforms thoughts, desires, and ultimately, the entire inner atmosphere of the human being. Below are practical steps drawn from the laws of creation, perfectly aligned with the Grail Message. Used sincerely, they will gradually dissolve the roots of lust and awaken purity, self-mastery, clarity, and inner strength. 1. Morning alignment. Turning the soul to the light. Before speaking to anyone or touching your phone, sit upright, breathe calmly, turn your inner gaze upward. Not straining, not imagining figures, simply opening inwardly to the light. Then speak silently within. I stand before the light. Let my thoughts today be pure. Let my desires be clear. Let my actions align with your holy laws. A morning alignment like this forms a wall of inner protection. Lust loses its power when the soul begins the day uplifted. Repeat this for 2 to 3 minutes only, but with complete earnestness. 2. The breath of clarity exercise. Several times a day, especially when inner agitation, temptation, or restlessness arises. Step 1. Exhale slowly. As you breathe out, consciously release tension, worry, fear, sensual pressure, unhealthy desire. Let the exhale be a letting go. Step 2. Inhale light. As you breathe in, imagine, not pictures, but a feeling, that you are drawing in clarity, purity, and strength from above. You are not creating anything, you are opening yourself to reality. Step 3. Redirect the will. Immediately afterwards, say inwardly, I choose purity. This simple practice realigns the inner will and dissolves the magnetic pull of sensual desire. 3. The thought purification exercise. Lust always begins with thought images. Once you master the thoughts, you conquer the passion. Whenever a lustful image enters the mind, do not fight it. That only strengthens it. Instead, Step 1. Observe it neutrally. Become aware of the image without fear or indulgence. Step 2. Withdraw your consent. Say inwardly, this is not my will. Step 3. Replace it with a pure, uplifting thought. Examples. A noble task. A meaningful goal. A higher virtue. Light and purity. Gratitude. The soul cannot hold two images at the same time. By replacing the image, you break the chain instantly. 4. The evening review, the lamp of the day. This is one of the most powerful tools for purification. Before sleeping, reflect quietly. Did I entertain impure thoughts today? Did I feed lust with imagination or images? Did I fail to resist early impulses? Where did I fall? Where did I stand? Then, A. Acknowledge your errors without excuses. No self-deception. No justification. No self-pity. B. Resolve to correct the specific point tomorrow. Name it clearly. C. Give thanks for every victory, however small. Gratitude strengthens the will for the next day. This daily review burns away impurity like a spiritual flame. 5. The physical discipline exercise. The body must obey the spirit, not the reverse. Choose one small physical discipline to practice daily. Cold water on the face. A 5-minute walk. Keeping the posture upright. Delaying gratification by 2 minutes. Controlling sugar, meat, or certain foods. Do one small thing consistently. The purpose is not the act itself, but training the will. Each act of physical self-control strengthens your ability to resist lust. 6. The creative force, awareness exercise. Once a day, place your hand gently over your lower abdomen, the seat of the creative force. Then say inwardly, "This force belongs to the light. I will use it for purity, life, blessing, and service." This resets your relationship with sexuality from instinct to responsibility, pleasure to purpose, desire to direction. It recalls the sacredness of the creative fire. 7. The purity sphere exercise. This is an advanced exercise for those already making progress. Step 1. Sit quietly and imagine yourself surrounded by a sphere of pure white light. Not a visual picture, but a feeling of radiance, protection, and cleanness. Step 2. Will strongly. Within this light, only purity may enter. Step 3. Hold this state for 30 seconds. No more is needed. Over time, this creates a true aura of purity that repels dark influences and weakens lust's hold. 8. The hour of silence. Once a week, choose 1 hour for no phone, no media, no noise, no conversation, no work, just silence. This silences the emotional storms that feed lust. In silence, the soul becomes transparent, receptive, and strong. 9. The service exercise. Lust turns the soul inward, toward itself, its desires, its cravings. Service turns the soul outward, toward others, toward giving, toward building. Once a day, help someone, offer a kind word, pray for another, perform a selfless action, uplift someone's burden. Every act of service weakens the roots of lust because lust thrives only in self-centeredness. 10. The vigilance rule. Guard the first second. Lust always attacks at the first second. A glance, a picture, a memory, a sound, an emotion. If you master the first second, you master the entire battle. In that moment, reject the thought. Redirect the mind. Affirm your will. Turn upward. Guard the first second. It determines the next 10 minutes, the next hour, the entire day. Appendix D. Meditation on light, purity, and truth. This meditation is not a technique. It is not emotionalism. It is not imagination. It is not visualization. And it is not an attempt to create something. It is an inner opening to what already exists. The light, purity, truth. These meditations help restore the natural connection between the human spirit and the luminous currents flowing through creation. They strengthen the will, calm the soul, and purify the inner atmosphere, making lust weaker and purity stronger. Practice one meditation a day, not all at once. Meditation 1. standing before the light. Sit upright. Breathe quietly. Then inwardly say, I stand before the light. I open myself to clarity. I receive strength. Do not imagine anything. Just be still, inwardly uplifted. Feel peace, quietness, purity, brightness. This meditation aligns your spirit with the luminous currents from above. Meditation 2. The stream of purity. Close your eyes gently. Turn your inner gaze upward. Will quietly. Let purity flow through me. Now feel as if a cool, refreshing stream washes downward through your being. Cleansing, calming, strengthening. This is not fantasy. The light truly cleanses when the human will opens. Meditation 3. The sword of truth. Truth cuts through illusions. Inwardly say, let truth reveal what is false in me. Wait quietly. Soon you will sense clarity, sincerity, honesty, inner uprightness. Truth strips lust of its illusions and makes its ugliness visible. This meditation awakens inner courage. Meditation 4. The radiance of purity. Uplift yourself inwardly and feel. Purity is strength. Purity is clarity. Purity is victory. Let the feeling grow until it becomes a quiet inner glow. Dark desires cannot survive in this atmosphere. Meditation 5. The flame of the will. Place your attention gently on the solar plexus, the seat of your earthly will. Then inwardly affirm, I will purity. I will truth. I will light. Feel your will warming, strengthening, straightening. Weak will is the root of lust. Strong will is its conqueror. Meditation 6. Let my spirit rule. Say inwardly, my spirit rules my body. My spirit rules my thoughts. My spirit rules my desires. Feel yourself stepping into inner sovereignty. No longer a slave. No longer a victim. No longer tossed by impulses. But a ruler over your own inner world. Meditation 7. The quiet of God's law. Sit in silence. Feel the order, the harmony, the majesty of the laws of creation surrounding you. Then say, your laws are my protection. Your laws are my guide. In your laws I find freedom. This meditation brings deep peace and strengthens the alignment with purity. Meditation 8. The inner temple. Turn inward and feel that your inner being is a temple meant only for noble thoughts, pure desires, luminous intentions, high aspirations. Then say, let nothing unclean enter this temple. This establishes boundaries within the soul. Meditation 9. The gratitude of the redeemed heart. Think of one victory, no matter how small, over lust. Then say, thank you for helping me stand. Gratitude opens the soul to greater help from the light. Meditation 10. The light within me shall shine. End with this. I carry the light within me. Let it shine. Let it purify. Let it guide. This awakens confidence in the spirit within you. The true self that was always meant to rule.